Hey, welcome back everybody. Today we are going to be diving into the glute bridge. Now this is going to be really powerful exercise to help start stabilizing the hips and help integrate core into hip movement. So what we're really going to be focusing on here is the activation of the glute medius, which is oftentimes we find one of the weak muscles contributing to low back pain, hip pain, and leg pain that kind of extends down the leg as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in the position that you see Dr. Marin in. And if you remember the supine pelvic tilt video where we're trying to find that nice neutral tension state of our pelvis, we're going to start this exercise by doing that. So we're going to tuck the pelvis forward all the way, and then we're going to bring the pelvis all the way back like we're tucking the tail underneath us. And then we're going to find that nice neutral position. Now from where Dr. Marin is, she's going to spread her legs out just about hip width. Perfect. And now the first thing we're going to do before we dive into the glute bridge or the raising of the pelvis and torso, we're going to make sure that we're activating those glute meds. And so what we're going to do is you're going to put your hands right here on your hips, kind of on the side of that butt tissue, to make sure that as you're activating and going up into the bridge, you're feeling the tension increase right about here. We don't want to over-recruit the glute max, and we don't want to start recruiting quads or hamstrings. We want to make sure the initiation of the movement comes from right about there. All right, now if you're struggling to feel that activation, one of the cues you can do is kind of squeeze the butt cheeks together before you start to lift. And that may start to cause you to have an activation of the overall glute max muscle. But what you want to do is work till you have a little bit of relaxation here and a lot more activation through here. All right, now Dr. Marin, you're going to activate those glute meds, and then you're going to start to raise the pelvis off the ground. Good. And for the first few reps, what we're going to do as we're learning is just come slightly off the ground and then go back down to relax. Maybe hold for 3 to 5 seconds as you come up. And then, yep, come back up into it. Perfect. And then down. And we'll do this for about 5 to 10 reps until you really start feeling that activation of the glute medius, and then we can start to progress into the more advanced versions of the exercise. Good, and then come all the way down and relax if you need. And whenever you're ready, I'm going to have you raise up into that glute bridge and bring it all the way up to where just your shoulder blades are touching. Perfect, just like that. So we're nice and high. We're going to hold here. Allow those muscles to activate, maybe even fatigue a little bit. And then when you start to feel that fatigue, or after 15 to 20 seconds, we're going to lower down and rest. Perfect. And then we're going to continue this process after about a 5 to 10 second rest period to make sure that we have enough time to reset, but then come back up into the glute bridge. Perfect. And we don't want to raise up much more than this because we really want to focus on the activation through here. Good. And then go down for me. And let's do one more rep. Perfect. And one thing you want to make sure of is as you come up, you don't want to have the hips rotate. You don't want them to kind of start to wobble. You want to make sure you have strong knees. You want to make sure that the feet are firmly planted into the ground, and you're getting a really good arch, or having that tripod effect where your heel and then right between the base of your big toe and your little toe are very activated, creating a strong arch and strong support of the foot. Good, and then come all the way down to a rested position and take a break. Now we're going to show you a few variations. Once this starts to get a little bit easier, there are some options to help kind of make it a little bit more intense and dynamic, so that way it can serve you at a higher level while you're moving and not just while you're lying on your back. So whenever you're ready, come back up. You don't have to go fully into the glute bridge for right now because we just want to start to play around with some variations. So what Dr. Marin is going to do is you're going to lift this right foot off the ground, maybe just an inch. You can go this high, but if you want to start a little bit lower, we just want to work on and rest. And then raise this one. Good. And just a little bit lower for me. Perfect. We want it just off the ground, so that way we start to push all of the weight in one of the legs, and that leg is now activating exclusively through that glute med to stabilize the pelvis. Now the things you're going to want to watch for is you don't want the pelvis to start to rotate. Can you show them a really Good example of a bad one. Perfect. You don't want to do anything like that. We want to make sure that we're staying neutral in the pelvis, and we want to make sure that we don't exhaust the core or the glutes. So if you notice your back or your lumbar spine starting to drop down, or you notice your glutes start shaking, or that your hips start rotating, then pause, go down, relax, and then come back in after you've had a few seconds to kind of reset all of those muscle groups. And I'll have you go just a little bit wider with the legs. Perfect. Good. Now, if you want to make this a little bit more difficult, you can again come into that all the way raised position of the glute bridge. But for now, what we're working on is just that activation and that dynamic nature of switching the weight between the feet and making sure that we're really digging into that glute med and getting the activation that we want. Good, and then come all the way down to a rested position. So for the next one, what we're gonna do is instead of bringing that foot just slightly up, we're gonna bring the foot up and then extend the leg, and it's gonna add more weight to the equation and create more of a tension state through the glute med to stabilize. Good, straighten that leg, perfect. And you may find this is extremely difficult and you're struggling to maintain that core tension as well as that stability. So if that is the case, then go back to just raising the foot slightly off the ground until you build the strength and the endurance in those core muscles to really maintain that neutral pelvis position. And as always, with all of our movements, again, we're making sure that the quality is high. We're not worrying about the quantity. We just want to make sure it's nice and fluid and that we're moving from the core. Good, and you can go down and relax. Perfect. And then after about 5 to 10 seconds, we'll do one more rep of that. And you can just show them an example of start to finish. You don't have to go into too many reps. Perfect, nice straight long leg, really good balance through the core. You'll notice she's not raising really high up because you don't have to with that added weight. And then you can rest after the left rep. With that extra weight added, it really adds a lot of stress and tension to the glute medius. Good. And then the next progression that we're going to dive into is not so much about creating more weight to create more endurance and strength in the core. It's going to be more about how do we integrate this while constantly switching positions. So similarly to that first variation where we slightly raised the foot off the ground and then slowly placed it down, took a second to reset and raised that second foot. Instead, this time what we're going to do is we're going to almost be marching in place. And so what you're going to notice is, and you don't have to start yet, what you're going to notice is the hips are going to want to start to rotate with that, and that's what we want to fight against and prevent. And so it's all about, again, not the speed of the march, but the quality of the movement and the quality of the stabilization through the core. All right, Dr. Brandon, whenever you're ready, come on up, and then just choose a leg to start with, ever so slightly up and down, and then opposite leg. Good. Now again, with this one, you can start with just go up about an inch with each foot. You can start as low as that, and it's going to accomplish the goal. But as that gets easy, you can then choose to move the leg a little bit higher up. And if you want to go for that extra credit, you can even go all the way up into that extended leg position and couple it with the march. Just again, make sure that you're maintaining that neutral pelvis, you're activating the core, and you're not over-recruiting the big butt muscles. You want to make sure that you're maintaining that tension through those glute meds. That's what will help stabilize everything as you move and help stabilize the low back and pelvis. You're good to relax. All right, we got one more advanced variation for you. Now this is going to be once all of those have gotten relatively easy to do, then we're going to add a little bit of resistance with a resistance band. And so what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this right about on the knees. Now if that's uncomfortable on the back of your knees, you can either go up to the thighs or you can go just below the knees. And what this is going to do is as we widen the legs, it's going to start to add resistance and try and pull your legs in, and you're going to have to recruit those muscles even more to maintain the leg position while you go through the ranges of motion. Now for this video, we're just gonna show you the simple activation of the glute bridge, but keep in mind you can use this banded exercise for any of the exercises we showed or the variations of the glute bridge in this video. All right, Dr. Marin, when you're ready, come up. Good. You can see she's doing a really good job, and then you can relax. Perfect. And then do 2 more reps for him. Beautiful. And then 1 more. And do a little pause and hold. Perfect. And you're good to relax. Now, as you're going through these exercises, remember as you're transitioning to one of the more advanced variations, you can just activate the glutes and rise maybe an inch or 2 off of the ground with your pelvis to start. And then once you get a little bit more comfortable, you can change the height and vary how high up you go. Remember, the higher your pelvis goes, the more challenging the exercise will be. Other options include simply doing the reps, going up and then down, and then kind of holding just above the surface so you never fully go into that resting position and you maintain that activation. Or your other option is as you go up, you can hold for a period of time. I would suggest anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds, depending on how much you want to add a challenging and endurance aspect to this exercise before going down and resting. Perfect.